Teddi Mellencamp, former Real Housewives star, reveals she has multiple brain tumors. Teddi Mellencamp, former star of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, revealed that doctors have found multiple tumors on her brain. Mellencamp wrote Wednesday on Instagram that she'd been experiencing severe and debilitating headaches for the last several weeks. The headaches were so unbearable that she required hospitalization Tuesday, she said. After a CT scan and an MRI, doctors found multiple tumors on my brain, which they believe have been growing for at least 6 months, she wrote. Mellencamp wrote that she would undergo surgery Wednesday to remove 2 of the tumors, while the rest would later be treated through radiation therapy. Mellencamp appeared to be in good spirits ahead of her procedure, posting videos of her pre-operation haircut on her Instagram stories. "I didn't have this look on my bucket list," she joked as someone shaved her head. In another video, she was surrounded by friends and family members minutes before she was expected to go into surgery. Kyle Richards, who is still in the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills cast, was among those at her bedside. In 2022, Mellencamp revealed she'd been diagnosed with stage 2 melanoma and has had ongoing treatment to remove the skin cancer. She had her 16th melanoma spot removed in September, according to People. Mellencamp starred on the Real Housewives series for 3 seasons before she was fired. She now hosts a podcast with Tamra Judge, who stars in the Orange County version of the reality franchise called Tugties in a Pod. She is the daughter of singer John Mellencamp, known for 1980s hit songs such as Hurts So Good and Small Town. A California jury found that Disney's Moana did not steal its idea from animator Buck Woodall's decades-old screenplay about a young Hawaiian surfer. After deliberating for over 2 hours on Monday, the jury ruled that no Disney employee had access to Woodall's storyboards or script for an animated film titled Bucky, which he claimed to have shared with an executive in the early 2000s. "We are obviously disappointed. We are going to review our options and think about the best path forward," Woodall's attorney Gustavo Lage said. A Disney spokesperson said they were incredibly proud of the collective work that went into the making of Moana, and pleased that the jury found it had nothing to do with plaintiffs' works. Woodall filed a suit in 2020, claiming Disney lifted many elements of a screenplay he had written for Bucky, and alleging a fraudulent enterprise that encompassed the theft, misappropriation, and extensive exploitation of his copyrighted materials by former Mandeville Films development director Jenny Marchick. Marchick's stepsister is Woodall's sister-in-law. Woodall's suit said he gave Marchick a screenplay and trailer for Bucky in 2003, as well as extremely large quantities of intellectual property and trade secrets, after the director had convinced him she would get the film greenlit. Teddi Mellencamp sat in the sterile, white-walled doctor's office, her fingers tapping a nervous rhythm against her lap. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic, and the fluorescent lights overhead hummed with an eerie indifference. She had been here before, but this time felt different. Heavier. Her doctor, a tall man with kind eyes that carried the burden of too many difficult conversations, took a deep breath before speaking. "Teddi, we need to talk about your latest scans." Teddi swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. She had convinced herself that this was just another routine checkup, a precaution. But the look in his eyes told her otherwise. "You have multiple brain tumors," he said gently, the words landing like lead in her chest. The world blurred for a moment, the edges of her vision tunneling as her thoughts raced. Tumors? Plural. She struggled to form a coherent thought. How bad is it?" she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The doctor folded his hands in front of him. "We need to run more tests to determine if they're benign or malignant. But regardless, we'll have to monitor them closely." Teddi took a shaky breath. She had always prided herself on being strong, both physically and mentally. She had built a career on discipline, on pushing through challenges, whether it was a grueling fitness routine or navigating the drama of reality television. But this was different. She nodded, forcing herself to absorb the information. "Okay, what's next?" The doctor launched into an explanation of possible treatment options: biopsies, MRIs, potential surgeries. The words washed over her, medical jargon blending into a whirlwind of uncertainty. As she left the office, stepping into the bright Los Angeles sun, Teddi inhaled deeply, as if trying to anchor herself to the present moment. She had been open about her past health struggles, from her melanoma diagnosis to her journey with fitness and self-care. This would be no different. That night, she sat at her kitchen counter, scrolling through photos of her children, Slate and Dove, their innocent smiles tugging at something deep inside her. She knew what she had to do. Picking up her phone, she tapped open Instagram, her fingers hesitating for only a moment before she hit record. "Hey guys," she began, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I wanted to share something personal, something scary. I found out today that I have multiple brain tumors." She exhaled slowly. "I don't know what this journey looks like yet, but I do know this: I'm going to fight. And I'm going to be honest about it, just like I always have." As soon as she posted the video, the response was overwhelming. Messages poured in, support from friends, fellow Bravo stars, and fans who had followed her journey since her Real Housewives days. Kyle Richards was one of the first to call. "Teddi, whatever you need, I'm here," she said firmly, the love in her voice evident. "I know," Teddi whispered, gripping the phone tightly. I wasn't expecting this." "Nobody ever does," Kyle said softly. "But you're strong. You're going to get through this." The days that followed were a blur of doctor appointments, tests, and waiting, always waiting. She did her best to keep life normal for her children, hiding her fear behind reassuring smiles and bedtime stories. But late at night, when the house was quiet, the weight of it all pressed down on her. One evening, as she sat on her patio, wrapped in a soft blanket, she allowed herself to feel the fear. Tears slipped down her cheeks, unbidden but necessary. She wasn't afraid of the fight itself. She had faced challenges before. No, what scared her was the unknown. The idea that she might not be there for her children, for the moments that mattered most. But then she thought about everything she had overcome. The criticism, the public scrutiny, the doubts, even her own. She had always risen, always pushed forward. And she would do it again. The next morning, she laced up her sneakers and hit the pavement. Running had always been her therapy, her escape. With each step, she felt the fear lessen, replaced by determination. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her family, for her future, for the life she had built with so much resilience. As she ran, the sun rising behind her, she made a promise, to herself, to her loved ones, and to the thousands of people who had reached out with messages of hope. She would fight. She would share her journey, no matter how difficult. And most importantly, she would live.